So when in my book, I talk about how young Black women aged 14 to 21, they are the ones who are most prone to this abortion statistic of 300 and, let's say 370, just for the sake of conversation, 370,000 Black babies being aborted every year. So we have young girls and young women aged 14 to 21 who are having multiple abortions. We're talking about 3 to 5 abortions at a very young age, which lends to miscarriages later on in life, which lends to being sterile, and which also is connected to breast cancer statistics. Mm-hmm. Now, how is it that we as Black women, and this is for all of the sisters who are listening, how is it that we are watching our daughters destroy their wombs? And then, of course, the psychological and the emotional aspect of that later on in life, when you realize what it is that you've done to your body and what you did in your formative years, how is it that we as Black women are so immersed in this world that we don't see these numbers, these statistics, what's happening to our daughters? They're using abortion as a method of birth control, and that we could not be operating from a sense of urgency. We're on social media talking about Lemonade and talking about Scandal and talking about Empire and talking about television shows when our children are crying out for help with their behavior. So then the conversation gets, well, women have the right to choose and women have the right to do with their bodies and women have this and women. It's not only our choice. It takes a man and a woman to cultivate and create a child. Now, of course, we have situations too where men are forcing women to get abortions. When you get into a relationship with a man and he has no interest in being with you long term, so you get pregnant and now he's like, okay, I got 600, we got to go to the clinic, not keeping in mind what she wants. So the conversation has to be balanced. But for us as a people, if we do not sit up straight and say something is very wrong with this picture, white people in the scientific world of racism, white supremacy has declared war on our wombs, on the wombs of our women, and as well as the genetics of men. There is a whole nother aspect of the conversation as far as why men are not reproducing themselves as far as children. The sexual anatomy of a man. You keeping those cell phones in your pocket. You are zapping your anatomy down there. So why are we having less birth rate of boys? There's a video called The Disappearing Male. I implore everyone to go and watch that video because it talks about the sperm count of men today. And of course, we know Black men will their statistics will be a lot higher because of the way they eat, because of the way they live, the alcohol, the drugs, the stress, the emotional and mental dysfunction that a lot of our brothers are facing. There's a whole conversation about the scientific war on us as a people that we are not even having.
You're talking about, the population of, the country, at least with the white, people being, at a minority. Mm-hmm. And I was telling people that I say, when they came out, all this stuff about Mexicans and Muslims, which if you do the research, Mexicans and their birth rate is just exploding.
Yeah.
And then if you look into their community and what they believe in, a lot of them are traditional Catholic. And, a lot of them that's traditional Catholic don't believe in birth control, don't believe in abortion. Matter of fact, you do abortions in some Hispanic families, they kick you out of the family.
Yeah.
And we at one point in time, we were like that. And we need to go, that's why I tell people, we need to go back. I'm going to say segregation back. I'm not saying the actual act of segregation, but I'm saying the way our family structure was during segregation and back. Well, we had, pride in our community. We wouldn't put up with stuff like that. If you got somebody pregnant, doggone it, you gonna marry them. That type of thing. They didn't play that, them old school men, about just making babies just recklessly out here. And our family structure just needs to get back together. And I also tell a lot of people too, have a lot of kids. I tell people to have a lot. I mean, shoot, have 4, 5, 6, 7. Just make all the babies you want. Just in a marriage. Because it takes two people, not just having, different men would, no. But we need big families again. I love to see big families. I love it.
I do too. And I think one of the greatest things that we can do for ourselves is reproduce ourselves. Now, the problem that we come into is that we are getting into relationships where we're not equally yoked. Mm-hmm. We are not taking the science of mating and the science of finding a partner, a wife, a husband, we're not taking it seriously. We're having sex and then we're kind of backtracking from there. So I think that the conversation on sex is extremely, oh my goodness, is so underappreciated, and it's extremely important for us to have right now. You know, we live in a climate where people talk about jump offs like it's nothing. You know what I mean? Like, oh, she's a jump off. You know, oh, she, you know, I just hit that and I quit it. Well, jump offs lead to single mothers.
Mm-hmm.
Jump offs lead to abortion. You know what I mean? So we have to really dissect that and unpack that for our children. What is a jump off? You know, whose mother is that? Whose daughter is that? You know, and then you talked about the family structure, and you know, you don't, like I always say, you don't have to have a relationship with a woman to have a relationship with a woman. So we have women out here who don't really know what manhood looks like. They don't have fathers in the household coming up as girls. And that's a major problem in our communities. So that means the uncles have to step up. That means the grandfathers and the cousins and the brothers in the community who see these young sisters struggling and dressing and, you know, looking hot to trot and whatnot. Like, we have to start intervening again, rebuilding that family structure, starting to conversate with one another so we can build and establish trust again. You know, this whole situation with Africa Bambaataa and this molestation thing, we don't realize how big pedophilia is in our community. And it's destroying the fabric of the family. And I've heard on so many different occasions, women contacting me, or even a few males contacting me, that have said, you know, my uncle touched me inappropriately, or this happened, and then I told my mother, and my mother was like, keep it a secret. What? You know, what do you mean keep it a secret? You know, how can we see? And then you hear the story in New York, and everybody's kind of like, you know, oh yeah, you know, that's old news. Like, what do you mean that's old news?
Yeah.
I mean, people in New York actually knew that there was a pedophile. I don't care if he's in hip hop. I don't care if he's a nobody. You knew that there was somebody in our community that was molesting our children, and we didn't do anything about it. So, the concept of the family structure, it has to be reapproached from an accountability standpoint. There's so many things in our community that are going on unchecked and undiscussed. We have boys coming up at 7 and 8 and 9, 10 years old that are their uncles are giving them pornography just for fun. You know, and this is a climate in our culture. I saw it when I was coming up, when my little cousins would talk about stuff like that. And as a young girl, I didn't understand. And now I'm like, wait a minute, he was like 10. And my older cousin gave him a porno magazine. And I don't know what happened after that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You talked about the Mexicans and how they're reproducing themselves. You know, they have their culture. Even if it's Catholicism, and, you know, there's a whole nother backdrop to that conversation, but they have a culture intact. They know who they are. We have a culture of ignorance. We are living and breathing and surviving and existing in a culture of ignorance, and that goes way beyond poverty. That's not just the block boys and, you know, the hood rats, as people call them, which I can't stand. But you know, that goes so far beyond just the people who don't have anything. I see ignorance in corporate brothers and sisters. I see ignorance in the Afrocentric, you know, paradigm. Ignorance is plaguing our people all across the board. So we got to go back to the root, to the science of, you know, who we are and who we were and what we need to be striving for. And the last point, you talked about segregation. Segregation is integration. Integration is one of the worst things that happened to our people. You know, in the book $40 Million Slaves, he talks about how when the Negro Leagues were morphed into the major leagues, how it basically destroyed a whole economic and sociological powerhouse. We had pride in going to see our players. We had hotels, we had restaurants, we had tourist spots all across the country where the players would go. People would drive around the city, around the country, and go see players. We had something to be proud of. We had something that was ours. We integrated into the major leagues. They took Jackie Robinson and everything else stopped. They lied to the coaches in the Negro Leagues and told them that they would bring the coaches along. They didn't take the coaches. They took one player, Jackie Robinson, and all of the rest of the players basically got left by the wayside. And it destroyed their ability to take care of their families. You know, the list goes on and on. But the point is integration and what it did to our people. We didn't have a lot, but we had each other. Now our people are so focused and in love with the world of racism, white supremacy, we can't even fathom what it would look like to say, okay, you know what? I'm only buying black. I'm only supporting black people. I want to study Tulsa and Black Wall Street and study Rosewood and study some of these prominent black not civilizations, communities that were thriving at one point. What happened to them, and how do we get back to that?
Correct. You know, it just kind of makes me sick a lot of times, you know, when I see some black people, and if you look at, like you say, all the ignorance and the thugging, and you say, you may not like the word hood rat, but it definitely describes the behavior.
Yes.
And it has to be called out, because, you know, if we don't establish this behavior and shun this behavior, because it should be shunned, we
Yes.
can't accept the standard in our community for this stuff. You know, for me, you know, we always talking about who's selling out, who's doing this and the third. But if, you know, you killing black people, if you're doing black people wrong like some of them do, then no, we need to shun you. And we, a lot of times what our biggest problem is, I notice, and I draw a line in the sand, at least with me, we cannot coddle them. We have to say, listen, we have a standard. We got to build on what you just said. How are we going to do that if we do not set a standard and rules and regulations within our community for the decent black men and black women? Like I was said plenty of times, what we need to do is get together, buy land, build subdivisions, set up our own police force, our own fire department. We can do all this stuff. I've seen communities in Houston do it. You can have your own police force. You don't have to have outside Houston police even coming in that neighborhood. Okay, yeah. We need to do that sort of thing. And if you guys don't want to reform and get right, well, you can stay where you're at doing what you're doing. We got to go over here and worry about our future, because we cannot. We at a point that we cannot carry them along anymore, Zaza. We can't. We have to fix our community.
You are absolutely correct, and that is, you know, I say all the time that, you know, a lot of our people are going to get left behind. Mm-hmm. There is so many things that are going on that I just, you know, especially in this quote unquote conscious community, that I'm just like, I don't want no parts of that. I don't care if you got on a dashiki, if you wearing an ankh, if you got on a, you know, hijab. Like, there's so many things that are going on in our communities that just totally need to be ostracized. We, you know, like, with the going back to the Africa Bambaataa thing, people were like, well, he's a hip hop pioneer and, you know, we need to investigate first. No, you are accused of pedophilia, and there seems to be a credible argument or accusation. You need to be ostracized. You need to be taken out of the community, put into, you know, whatever, however we can figure it out. You need to be totally ostracized, not only from our children, but our people. Mm-hmm. Then we can do the investigation. Then we can backtrack from there. So whether you're talking about drug selling, whether you're talking about robbery and thievery, whether you're talking about, you know, there's a culture and a climate in black women. You know, we have a conversation about slut shaming now. You know what I mean? Like, we're actually talking about slut shaming. Should sluts be ashamed though? That's the question that, you know, that flip that question over. What is a woman who identifies with a term as a slut? What benefit can she bring to our communities?
Nothing.
If you call yourself a slut, I don't even want you around black girls. You need to be the hell away from our people. And so, you know, I lived in Atlanta. There's like strip clubs on every corner in Atlanta. And I was having a conversation the other day, and I was talking about how, like, you know, when I was coming up, like, if you were stripping, you weren't wearing that on your shoulder. You know what I mean? That was like, okay, it's your job. You trying to make it through, whatever. The strippers in Atlanta, they look like strippers when they're not working. Like, you're wearing that and representing that, because we live in a climate of ignorance, mm-hmm. where now, you know, reality TV stars and strippers and sluts are being magnified and put on this scale where they are what girls are striving to be, and dudes in the club throwing up ones, and, you know, our young brothers want to be that. So for me, I'm like, no, I am the antithesis to the slut. I am the antithesis to, you know, this whole making strippers popular. And I'm not knocking strippers. I know you may get in a position where you got to do what you got to do, but do what you got to do so you can do what you want to do. Don't get stuck in that life. So I am very cognizant of representing myself in a way that makes our women and our daughters aspire to be more than that. We have so much potential and so much power as women, and we don't know who we are. So you're absolutely correct. I don't want any of that around my son. I don't want, the N word, and I don't want to say it because I don't know if it's appropriate, but, there's a whole argument over whether we should be using that word or not. But is there a culture that is ingrained in our people that needs to be destroyed? You can identify whether you say thought, whether you say ratchet, whether you say block boy, dope boy, whatever you want to call it. It needs to be destroyed. It absolutely does. And anything that comes with it, that includes hip hop, that includes pop culture, rap, that includes R&B. If Beyonce or Rihanna or Nicki Minaj is representing an aspect of ratchet or hood rat or slut, should we be talking about it? Or do we just big it up because it's Beyonce? If she can twerk on a Super Bowl field, but then we want to turn around and talk about our daughters twerking on videos and call them hood rats, but then we big Beyonce up, that is a very hypocritical message to be sending our children. We should be praising the elements of our communities and our culture that are doing well, and we should be ostracizing and criticizing and judging. We don't judge. You shouldn't judge. No, the intention behind the judging is what's critical. There's so much behavior in our communities that needs to be judged and then done away with and destroyed.
Now, let me tell you, you mentioned hip hop, and I feel that's something that, God has given us is just basically putting poetry, which is an art form, to music. And if you look at the inception of hip hop, back in the day, it was more so about party music, just having fun. Then it kind of started morphing into conscious music. And I had posted a video on my Facebook page of Ice Cube when he was talking about the change when it went from just talking about what's going on in the community, consciousness, party, whatever, to all this, killing, drugs, sexing, because he said the radio DJs just stopped playing it. And then when we actually had our record labels and it was a genre just for us, we only knew about it, the music was okay. But when you got the Ashkenazi Jew and the white people that came in, they literally messed up that art form. It's where it's at today. And let me tell you how sad it is. And these people got upset with me when I did this. I posted a video. I don't know if you've seen these kids. They made like a parody song to Donald Trump, right? And it was using literally the same lyrics that they would say about black people, talking about choppers in the trunk and all this other stuff they're going to do, right? The doggone FBI and Secret Service even looked into that one, okay? But if they make the same lyrics about black people, talking about they're going to kill this in and get a chopper for in and nothing is said. No FBI, no Secret Service, no nothing. Rick Ross, he made a line about Donald Trump. A white dude on YouTube got Walmart involved with it. Okay, took Rick Ross' album out of Walmart. So you could say all this killing and debauchery against our people, that's cool. But the moment you say one line about white folks, it's a problem all of a sudden. And I'm saying, black people, you don't see this?
Yeah. Well, that's when it goes back to what I talked about before, dealing with our issues and then also being mindful of the war that's taking place. Like, what you're saying, what you're describing, the Ashkenazi Jews, the corporate, the corporatocracy of the music industry. Do we as a people understand that the system of racism, white supremacy is using our music and our culture and the music industry in general as a war against us? Mm-hmm. That's basically what you just said. Can we conceive that? And if we can't, then we have a real serious problem. And if we can, and if we acknowledge that, now we have to accept the responsibility to teach our young people. It's like Cube saying, talking about, and he's absolutely correct. But then look at the music that NWA put out. And it was political, and it was hardcore, and it was raw, and it was true to the streets, but it also had an impact. And then Cube goes on, and he has all of this success, and then he's doing commercials for liquor. Like, why are you have money, you have fame, your family is well taken care of. Why are you doing commercials promoting alcohol when liquor is one of the things that has been destroying generations of our people? Why, so it's that accepting the responsibility. The other thing is, you talked about music and the power of hip hop, the power of poetry is something that we really don't understand. And it goes back to, the Moors in Spain. We had these African kings and these kingdoms that were very powerful throughout Spain. Poetry was a very integrated part of the culture and the customs that they had there, because they understood the power of lyricism and the power of the harp and the harmonicas and the different instruments that they used to edify the people and to give them peace of mind. In Africa, all of these things are natural to the indigenous cultures around the world. So then you have Europeans who see culture, Public Enemy, and the power of music and the impact that it's having on the people. So they take it and pervert it now. Not only is it perverted with the language that's being used in the lyrics, and it's so disgusting. Like if you listen to a rap, a pop radio station now, and I've been all across this country from New York to LA to the Bay Area. You hear the music, it's all the same thing, and it's all garbage. Like it's all garbage. I can't even. I don't even see how they listen to it. Like it's like hearing fingernails on a chalkboard. You know what I mean? Young people are immersed in it. They love it. It's all they know. But it's the aspect of what's being said. But there's also a science underneath the music, the frequencies in the music, the hidden subliminal messages. This is why it's important that we look into science, that we look into the physiology of the body and of the mind. There's something that's taking place when you're watching television that you do not, especially a plasma television. You have no clue about what's taking place. The frequencies that's in the music today is tapping into a neurological aspect of the mind, which is poisoning people. And it goes well beyond just the words that are being used. It's a manipulated drum beat. We know naturally the drum beat from Africa, it resonates with us. But there's also a drum beat to the planet that resonates with the human frequency in all nature and all frequencies. So, I don't want to go too far off in that, but there is a science behind the music and how it is being used to manipulate and brainwash people. This is why one of the reasons why our people are so lackadaisical. How we could see our children, Trayvon Martin, Oscar Grant, all of these different murders taking place, and we're just sitting back, and even black on black crime. We're sitting back and not really doing anything, and we're like, well, what's wrong with our people? Fluoridated water. It's the lead in the water. It's the music. It's the science behind the music, which the Europeans know and the people in the music industry know. We think we're just buying a record. And now it's digital opposed to analog, so there's a whole other science behind that. But this is why it's so important for us to stay abreast with modern times and what's taking place behind the scenes.
Correct. And because when you look at, white artists, the white artists don't be talking about killing white folks and doing all this horrible stuff to white folks. They don't do that. But, and if they say something like that, they don't promote them. And then the other thing that's, what's really concerning me is this, and Dr. Francis Cress Welsing talked about this way before it actually started happening, about this feminization of the black male and how they promoting, all these black men walking around with these sagging pants. And then now you have people like Young Thug that's sitting up here coming out, okay, calling another man bae and hubby and all this dress wearing that these celebrities are doing now, this homosexuality, trying to put it on the black man just to feminize them. Because, you can feminize a black man. Hey, it's easy to destroy him, easy to control him. And I see that as something that's very sinister that they're doing in this country.
Oh, absolutely. And Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, everyone who's watching this, you should absolutely have her book, The ISIS Papers, and go to YouTube and research her and be very astute to what she was talking about, the war of racism, white supremacy. And she talked in her book about the system of racism, white supremacy. And this is why you see homosexual males being elevated in different corporate endeavors. You do not pose a threat to the white male. That's on a man-to-man basis, but then it's also, as long as you are not cultivating a strong black family, male, female, and then children, which is 360 degrees, you are not moving towards destroying the system of racism, white supremacy. A strong black family is the greatest threat to the system of racism, white supremacy. So, it's like, If I talk about Young Thug, or if I talk about different artists, we talk about Jada and Will Pinkett and their son being the face of a very prominent and expensive European clothing line. People get mad because we're obsessed with the personality opposed to thinking about the bigger impact that it's having of seeing a young black male wearing a dress. What is that doing to not only the minds of our children, but the way that the rest of the world sees us and the way that the rest of the world interacts with us? So you have a Young Thug walking around with fingernail polish on and talking all this stuff about like I'm a real woman. I'm for strong black men, whether you military, whether you into martial arts, whether you're into intelligence and studying, whether you are, just a brother who's out there working to take care of your family, whether you're into health and fitness, whether you're into the science of your mind and yourself, whether you're just taking care of your children, trying to make it by, janitor, businessman, business owner, whatever. I represent the strong, real black man. I don't do this soft, frilly, homosexual, you know what I mean? Like 1 foot in malehood and 1 foot in womanhood. No, we don't want that. Real black women are rejecting that. And we want our sons back. So when we look at young black boys who are walking and talking and acting and trying to be like women, some of that is our women's fault, because we are shaping and molding our sons in our image. I'm going to say that again. Some of our women are shaping and molding our sons in our image, and that is a major problem. And it doesn't matter if a man is in the household or not. You still have a responsibility to make sure that you are providing your son with the right tools in order to cultivate manhood. That means making sure he's involved in sports and programs or in different things where he has access to men, making sure he can see men like you, brothers who are out in the community that are doing work. You can't be sitting up in the house watching Real Housewives of Atlanta with homosexual men on the TV, and you have a son or a daughter and think it's not impacting them. They think that's black manhood. So I just want to stress, we want our sons back. We want our men's back. Our men back. We are not privy or prone to accepting these drag queens and these effeminized men. No, we want real strong, black, astute brothers who are going to help us to turn this thing around.
Yeah, Zaza, now all that stuff me and you just said, we're going to be called bigots and haters because we do.
Zaza Ali does not do taboo. Let me just make it clear to everyone who is listening to my voice. I am here to represent the voiceless. I am here to say the things that a lot of people are thinking, but they are scared to say. So you can call me whatever you want to, but if you are black and you are listening to the sound of my voice, you have a duty and responsibility for 7 generations coming up behind you. So what can a homosexual, effeminized black male today do for 7 generations coming up behind him if he can't reproduce himself? We are talking about a systematic war. The brother named Tyrone Hayes did a very thorough study. He's from Cal Berkeley, where he talked about how the herbicides and the pesticides that are being sprayed on the corn and the produce across the country. He did a study on toads and found that male toads were starting to develop female ovaries. It was changing the physical anatomy of the toad. The toad started to be attracted to male toads. So now you want to call me a bigot? You want to call me a hater? Okay, but go look up Tyrone Hayes. You cannot settle in your ignorance today. I'm not here to make you feel good. I'm not here to stroke your ego or give some false sense of pride for our people. No, we are struggling. We are dealing with so many different levels of ignorance and poverty and shameful behavior. Somebody has to address it. So you can call me whatever you want to call me, but go and do the research first. Find out about how fish and polar bears and all of these different wildlife and animals across the planet, now the males are starting to turn to homosexual behavior. Something is very wrong. I'm sorry, brother. I didn't mean to go off on
look, sister. You can go off anytime you get good and ready. We don't worry about that here. I mean, hey, I enjoy when somebody speak with passion and heart. Because the condition of what's going on with our people is something that you have to get passionate about and show the dire concern because it's not nothing we could speak so monotone about and act like everything is okay. I mean, we are screwed up in a whole lot of ways.
Yes.
Now, Zaza, before we wrap this up, are you doing any lectures that people possibly can attend in a few weeks or next month, something like that?
I am. I am actually going to be in Oakland on June 18th, out here in California. I'm going to be in Jacksonville, Florida. I should have my flyers in front of me, and I don't. In Jacksonville, Florida, on July 17th. I'm going to be in Southern California. The name of the city escapes me. This is so bad. On July 2nd. I'm going to be in Charlotte, North Carolina, on June the 25th. And I'm also trying to set up a few dates in Atlanta around June 25th. So be checking for me in Charlotte as well as Atlanta around the end of June. But you can go to my website, zazaali.com. My books are there. My blogs are there, as well as interviews and whatnot. And all of my flyers for my upcoming events, you can find them there. I'm also on Facebook, Zaza Ali. You can go there and you can get information about all the upcoming events. And I know I'm leaving something out, so please forgive me if you're, one of the people who are bringing me in town and I didn't remember to plug it. Just go to my Facebook page, Zaza Ali, and I'll have all the information there for you to see where I'm going to be at.
All right, so make sure that you go to the Facebook page, zazaali.com, and also isn't your YouTube channel name Z Ali 2012? What is it called?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. It's Z Ali, ZALI 2012. And then I also have another YouTube page, which is Zaza Ali 007. And my lectures, as well as my interviews and things, they can be found on both of those pages.
All right, so we'll try to put the cards up on the page. That way you guys can be clicking and subscribe to these channels and just check out, what Zaza has going on. But Zaza, thank you very much for joining us today, dropping a lot of knowledge, with passion, conviction, and heart. That's what we like to see. And maybe we could replicate more of you in the community. Maybe we could fix some things.
That's the goal. And thank you so much for brother for having me. Thank you for all the work you do on behalf of our people, and peace and love to all of your viewers.